Okay, we're now on record. So first and foremost, we'll start out with roll call. Mr. Hansel.
Here.
Mr. DeSantis.
Here.
Mr. Weir. Here. Mr. Lindewood.
Present.
Ms. Howe. Here. Mr. Walker.
Here.
Ms. White. Here. Mr. Morris is not here yet. Ms. Wilkie. Here. We do have quorum.
And if I may, I'd like to introduce, we have some of our folks from DOT's headquarters here in the audience, and I'd like to, if I may, introduce Jeff Otteson, our Statewide Program Development Director.
Thank you.
And with him is also Eric Taylor, who is managing the statewide long-range transportation plan and is here today to give AMATS an update on where they are with it.
Greg, would you mind giving this up?
All AMATS meetings are public meetings. The public is invited to comment on the different items we have before us. If we have a business item, we'll have a presentation by consultant or staff members, and then the committee will be giving an opportunity to discuss it, and then at that point, the public will be invited to comment. Since we have a lot of folks here today, and I'm sure they're interested in commenting, if you do get up to comment, please make sure you state your name nice and clear so Lori can get your name down. If you have a confusing spelling, make sure you offer that up so we get you in the records correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. So, first item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved by Mr. Wilbur, seconded by Ms. Howell. Are there any opposed to the amendment? Hearing none, we are so moved. The agenda is approved. First item of business, we have minutes.
It's confusing. It's fun because one of them is February 14th, 2013, one of them is February 13th, 2014, and then March 13th, 2014. These are the notes.
Two most recent, and then one from last year.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I move to approve February 14th, 2013 minutes.
Second. Motion by Ms. Smith. Are there any opposed to the approval of the February 14, 2013 minutes? Thank you. Hearing none, we have approved the 2013, February 13, 2014.
Madam Chair, I move to approve February 13th, 2014 AMATS minutes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lindewood. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, we are so moved.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve March 13th, 2014 AMATS minutes.
Second. Moved by Mr. Wilbur, second by Ms. Howell. I was not here for this one. Are there any opposed to the amendment? Hearing none, we are so moved.
Well, nice job. Really, very good. Abbreviating a Stewart's presentation into like 3 paragraphs. Very well done. Did a great job. Thank you.
All right, next up, right into the business items. Item 5A, the 2011-2014 TIP Administrative Modification Number 10.
Yeah, moving right along. So we have a couple of changes that we have in this. The last table, the payment replacement program, the very last page of this has a lot of revenue, and this is basically reflecting opportunities for other projects should we receive enough to do them. So we wanted to put those projects in there so they were listed. We don't put a dollar figure back in table 10 because those can change relatively often, but we do include the dollar figure for what we allocate that year in table 3. So in other words, when you look back in table 10, you see no dollar figures for those projects because we don't know exactly what yet which ones we're going to do, but we do put the allocation there in table 3. The other part of the administrative modification would be on table 7. We reflected, you can see the table 7 transit for the municipality of Anchorage. We reflected the 5310 split.
5307.
5307, that was the split, and so we reflected some changes to show those reflected in that presentation, the 2014 column. Table 7 is outside of the AMATS allocation. So it's not a portion that we decide how it's spent, so we're just reflecting this and see what other funds we can show them in our transportation improvement program. So those are the two administrative modification parts of this, the changes in table 10 and the changes in table 7, both outside of our allocation. So we'd ask for a recommendation for the policy committee for approval.
Any questions from the committee?
Madam Chair, if I could just add, I think Craig pointed out, the allocation of our FTA 5307 funds, we estimate how much we're going to get, and until we sign it, because we share those funds with the Alaska Railroad, until we actually know what the split's going to be, and we make an estimate, and we narrowed that down and defined what the split was in April for this year's allocation, so that's why we just want to reflect the accurate figures, so we appreciate your support.
Any questions from the committee? And at this time, it is open to the public. If there's any questions or comments from the public on this administrative modification. All right, hearing none. Madam Vice move to approve. Second. Moved by Ms. Good, seconded by Ms. Todd. Are there any opposed to the motions? Hearing none, we are so moved. How many sheets were with that?
There should have been a memo
Yes.
and then the spreadsheet.
Just one spreadsheet?
Well, the second spreadsheet is the 15 to 18.
Okay. Got it. Sorry, you're right, I'm not reading.
Let's keep turning the color.
All right, sorry, turning myself, so we are now on to item 5B, which is the 2015 to 2018 TIP public hearing draft.
What we have before you would be the creature that you saw previously, when we went through the process up to the policy committee, and some reflection of the public comments that we received. We just received a few, and the next page, which is just a 3.5 by 11 sheet, but on the landscape aspect, would be those comments. I did miss one, I'll mention in just a moment, but so the comments are reflected, showing what criteria they were, what category they were in, and then who made the comment, and the suggested change, and staff suggestions for that. The one comment that it's reflected in the spreadsheet here, but I forgot to mention down here was, Public Transit asked that we move in the CMAC table, state table 5, the Midtown Transit Center from 2016 into 2015. So we moved it up, and it was a $300,000 expenditure there in table 5. And we just, all we basically did is we moved it from 2016 into 2015 and reflected the dollar changes in the transit fleet expansion. So in other words, we added 300,000 more into the transit fleet expansion project in 2016 and took that 300 away from the 2015 project. So it all balances out, it just, the project itself moved up a year. So that was one, I did not reflect that comment on the comment response summary. So, other than that, the comments that were received are reflected in here based on staff's recommendation, and I'll go through those here. Now, the first comment we received is for table 3, the roadway category. AMATS has supported the city and the state on the traffic count program. So at the bottom of the spreadsheet on table 3 that has roadway improvements, you see all the red, and then the last project there is the safety improvement program traffic count support. That a request from the traffic division, the data section. They do all of our traffic counts for us. We head out on the streets and put the hoses down and do the counts, and we use those counts to inform our transportation demand model. Without those counts, we couldn't do our model. So we rely on them to do all of our counting for us. And we include money in the tip to support both the state doing that work and the city doing that work. And we had a request, which is included behind, you see in your comments there, table 3 roadway improvement. There's the actual request, but it basically is to increase the amount that's in there by $125,000 for 2015 and 2016 to reflect the need to have some additional funding to enhance the data system and improve their ability to provide the traffic information that we requested from them. So it's a relatively small amount of money. So staff agreed that that was probably a good idea and reflected that it was obviously subject to the TAC and the policy committee's approval. So I don't know if you want to take each one of these one by one, or I think run through the whole thing, however you want to do it.
Biggest thing one by one.
If you have further questions on that, Kim Carpenter, who is the engineer for that section.
Well, if we're gonna do them one at a time, does that mean we have to bring through the committee questions, public decision
What I
for
would
each
think.
individual
Sure.
one?
Sure.
Okay, so any questions on this change? Questions or comments on traffic? All right, good enough from the committee, then are there any questions or comments on this change from the public at this time?
Just on table 3.
Yeah, just on this traffic data.
Just on that change.
Just on the traffic data, that individual change. No? All right. No matter what back to us. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by Ms. Wilson. Are there any opposed? Hearing none.
The next set of comments are from bicycle commuters of Anchorage. And that is also in the packet there, their comments. So they have a discussion at the start about the allocation that we have going there, and then we have a few requested changes to the tip. The first one would be to increase, if we just step back just a second. If we look at the overall tip, the funding in this category is, the non-motorized category is at 12.4%. With the AMATS policies and procedures ask that this category be somewhere between 10 and 15%. So those are the policy and procedures that we offer by the policy committee, individually determine how we decide our allocation. So we're at 12.4% over the 4-year life of this tip. That's what we're at. The request from the bicycle community of Anchorage is to increase the non-motorized allocation to at least a full 15% of the total allocation for each of the 4 years of this planning cycle. And as you know, when we go through this process of creating the TIF, the staff takes all the projects and ranks and scores them, and then looks at the allocation and puts it into this format that you have before us to try and make the money go as far as we can, and try to balance out the needs of each category and all that sort of stuff, and recognizes the requirements of the policies and procedures that say somewhere between 10 and 15% of this category. We have come up with this allocation. Our staff suggestion is to keep the allocation as it is, because the entire program balances quite well like this. And there would be, in order to increase it to the amount that the BCA has requested, we would have to look at, probably for the most part, either reducing the amount spent in the CMAQ category for transit fleet replacement, or moving out some projects in the roadway category, which typically would be either pavement replacement projects or some of the design starts on some other road projects. Staff suggestion is to leave it as is with the balancing that we've done. So.
Can I do all of the BCA ones together or each individual one? Let's do the whole table together. The whole table.
Okay. I'll discuss the second BCA comment then. In the non-motorized category, there, you'll see project number 2, which is Anchorage area-wide trails rehabilitation. And this is looking at the recreational trails that we have around town. And the original allocation that staff had put in here was $1.5 million in 2016 to look at where we need some trail rehab. and do some design, and if we're able to move forward along, to do some construction on that. BCA's recommendation is to reduce that funding from 1.5 to 1 million in 2016 and allocate that funding to bike plan implementation. I did have a discussion with other staff, including Lori Skanke, our non-motorized category coordinator, and agreed that that would not be a major issue to move that money up to the bike plan implementation, and $1 million would still go a long way in trails rehab. So staff supports that suggestion. And the third,
Can I ask where that lives in too?
it is, project number 2 is Anchorage Airway Trails Rehab. So you'll see in 2016, it says $1 million. See that there?
See pedestrian plan project.
Should have the-
It's the second one.
And so then that was to move that up into the 2016 category. The third suggestion from BCA was to delay the planning, design, and construction of the Benson Boulevard multi-use path, project number 3, until the next tip, until the 2019-2020 kind of timeframe, and use those funds for the bike plan implementation. That was $200,000 in 2016 and $1 million in 2017. Staff, as you know, when we went through that ranking and scoring project, if you look at all the ones that were nominated for this category, this project ranked right near the top. And so we feel it is important to, we do have some money in bike plan implementation, which is the grandfather projects and up higher, but we would like to get started on this. We think it's important enough to get moving forward on it. So staff's recommendation is to leave the Benson Boulevard path in the project as it is. And those are the 3 changes that are in the non-motorized category, all based on comments from bicycle commuters of Anchorage.
We're just, it's all together. Yeah. Those are all in favor for, okay. So are there any questions or comments from the committee at this time?
I don't know, maybe Lori can speak to this, but moving the money from the area-wide trails we have into striping effectively for bike lanes and so forth like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, through the chair, Mr. Lindenwood, one of the issues is that the area-wide trails plan rehab, we haven't really gotten completed yet. We had a staffing issue last year, so the projects are lagging behind, and we will have the bike plan project.
Okay. So it's, okay. Just for the committee's information, we did have the money in the current tip that we put towards the bike plan implementation, and we have gone a long way to get a lot of those different projects, bike lanes, et cetera, through the design phase. So Mr. Jackson is here from the state who is managing that project. So that one is, it's kind of ready to roll if we get construction money. So this would be a good opportunity to get a lot of work done there. Just
Knowing the state of a lot of our trails and so forth that are actually integral parts of the bike plan, it'd be nice to see some, we've done a lot of effort, I know, around the university and all the coastal trail, but it'd be nice to start getting the rest of them done.
Any other questions from the committee? Yeah. Is there any particular justification for the non-project specific implementation dollars fluctuation between over the 4 years? So the pedestrian plan and the bike plan?
well, as I mentioned, one of those projects that we're doing right now, that the state is managing, is that bike plan implementation. And it's, right now, they're in the process of designing a lot of different places around town that are bike plan. I think it's mostly striping, but it could be some other stuff depending on how far they get down the list. And there's an opportunity to do smaller, some of those projects that were in the bike plan were $40,000, 50, 70, 80. So they're able to be bitten off in chunks, and so we wanted to kind of put money each year into that. So that's why we kind of spread it out there to make sure we're really trying to get through as far as that we can.
Any other questions? Office on the budget.
Love it. Please state your name for the
Thank you.
record.
My name is Steve Cleary, last name is C-L-E-A-R-Y. I'm a board member of the Bicycle Commuters of Anchorage. I want to thank you for the opportunity to just go over a few of the points from our letter, which I hope you all have a copy of. We've seen biking increase a lot, and the importance of it shown in events like yesterday, Bike to School Day. Over 2,500 students participated across the Anchorage School District, thanks to the good work of Ben Harris here and lots of others, and including Police Chief Mew and my son Liam, who's a kindergartner at Susittan Elementary, and myself. So we were real pleased with seeing so many people out on the trails and sidewalks and streets and having a safe, fun event. Bike to Work Day, as you all know, I hope, is very popular as well. Over 3,800 people participated in 2012. And last year, even though it was snowing and sideways rain, there were about 1,800 people out there as well. And those are just days. We're talking about the whole year and trying to make biking safer and better in Anchorage. So thanks again for the opportunity to be here today and for this tip and all the projects that you see there. It's a lot better than a couple years ago. I'm trying to follow the good example of Todd Logan here, one of our longtime volunteers, to come to these meetings and to participate and to engage in this process, which is working out well, and there's a lot of good money going towards biking and pedestrian facilities. And just to speak to the comments that we've heard and the questions, you know, our two suggestions there that you just went over were sort of last resort things if we didn't get the funding that we were likely to see. And that's what we want to focus on, is boosting those numbers for 2017 and 2018 up to the maximum allocation so that the good work that has gone into the bike plan and that planning and design can be implemented, so that there will be the money there to implement it. I live right on the Chester Creek Trail and use it with my son and my wife almost every day, and I'm very much in favor of getting that redone, and I know we just passed a bond to do that. So there's a lot of good stuff in the tip about the core bicycle network, the signing and striping, the area-wide trail rehabilitation, and again, marking and signing for the extensive bicycle network, and then lots of roads that are now, thanks to a lot of planning, including bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure like O'Malley, Abbott, Spinard, and the Birch Road rehab. I think and you see it in our letter, the biggest criticism we have is that years ago we've worked hard to get more money in for the bike plan. We just haven't seen that money working on the ground. It's been delayed and hasn't been put into the signing and striping, the things we would like to see to make biking safer here in Anchorage. And so that's really our message, is that we want to start to see the benefits of the planning of the bike plan by seeing projects on the ground, particularly the ones that don't need a NEPA review or a lot more planning. We know the where and the what and the how, but we need to know the when and to get them going. So again, our main point that we would like to see is for both 2017 and 2018 that increase to the full 15% of the tip. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. I'm sorry, we were just discussing if there's this is a question, I guess, if the meeting, we do have a lot on the agenda today, and if there's a lot of people here to testify on this, we may ask that you keep your testify just to 3 to 5 minute max. That way we can continue. All right, please state your name for the record.
My name is Lisa Holland, and I'm a neuroscientist from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I was ran over at a roundabout in the beginning of March. The gentleman took off and left me there. I did a header straight forward. My back tire slipped out. He was following way too close. He hit me, and I went completely forward. I'm dealing with a traumatic brain injury right now because of that. And this is also a brain drain for your community, because I'm not allowed to function at this time. That's all I need to say. There should be more signs. People should understand about roundabouts, how far they should be distanced from other bikes, and there should be more information for drivers to understand bikers. And it's very dangerous out there. I biked up in Fairbanks for 7 years and never had a near hit, And almost every day, I'm almost getting ran over, every day, because people are not watching out for bikes. And that's why,
Just a question for clarification.
yes.
One, you're within the roadway operating as a vehicle within the roundabout?
Yes, because it was too icy on the sidewalks, they were way too icy to be able to be on.
And would you mind sharing which roundabout?
Huffman Road, right on the north side of the old Huffman, one on the north side of the old Seward. I'm sorry, my spatial memory is tough right now.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paula Williams. I'm the Sustainability Director at UAA. And I don't know if, I'm here to support BCA's request to increase the spending on bicycle and pedestrian transportation. I don't know if you have noticed in the news lately, but UAA has a brand-new bike share program. We have a student green fee that was proposed and voted in by the students about a year and a half ago. It was starting collected in spring semester of last year. And the very first program that was funded by those fees was the bike share program. So we now have 50 bikes on campus. We were able to get that bike share program rolled out this spring semester, and we now have over 20 bikes that have already been checked out by students. So it would be really helpful to have more bike transportation. It's been one of the most popular things that we have had on campus. It would be really good to have good infrastructure for those students to be able to get to and from campus, from their home and around campus safely. The other thing that I am not sure that I wanted to bring to your attention is the Alliance for Biking and Walking. It's hard to see this on here, but lists Alaska, a large percentage of commuters bike and walk to work in Alaska, Oregon, Montana, New York, and Vermont, is one of the statements on their website. Alaska has one of the highest, surprisingly, one of the highest percentages in the United States of people biking and walking to work, which is another reason to really put more money toward biking and walking. Thank you. Thank you.
Standing up, I guess. You go formal way here. I'm Ben Harris, BENHARRIS. I'm the district coordinator for Bike to School Day at the Anchorage School District. I'm not here speaking for the district, I'm here speaking on my own behalf. I'm here to speak for providing safe routes to schools and a healthy alternative to motorized transit. Yesterday, we conducted National Bike to School Day here in Anchorage, part of a national event. There were 1,900 schools in 48 states, and Portland was part of it. Anchorage had 62 schools participating, more than 2,500 students. I'm still calculating numbers. We'll have that by Monday. But we had the largest turnout in the country. The largest turnout in the country. Portland was the next closest with 56 schools. So clearly there is a demand and a need for non-motorized transit in Anchorage. This is not just a fleeting thing. It's been growing. We went from 5 schools in 2012 to 62 this year, and we had about 40 last year. So it's been growing, and the numbers are impressive. Just to underscore the need and the demand and the interest for non-motorized. I just hope that we can get to 15% of the non-motorized funding. We appreciate your work toward that and the efforts of this committee. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Schmitz, SCH, MITZ. I'm on Taco Campbell Community Council, Trail Watch, Volunteer Graffiti Buster, Boy Scouts, you name it. Part of the job today was to come testify here. Part was to document hauling in trail on Campbell Creek by Taku Lake. About 50% of trail is now in the creek. We need to do the striping and so forth, so we need to do the construction of missing links. The demand is increasing with completion of the Seward Highway, and bridges on that. We are looking at the Campbell Creek Trail now becoming the competitor for the Chester Creek Trail. It's going to be that scale. Winter biking in particular is increasing. Used to be you never saw fat bike or fat bike track in the wintertime. Now, it is rare not to see a fat bike tire track. People are buying them in droves. So winter, summer commuting, which I did for years, is all increasing. So I would recommend highly that we go with 15%.
My name's Alice Knapp. I live actually on the east end of town, but I'm a recreational biker around town. And I wrote a letter a couple weeks ago to ADM about the state of the Campbell Creek Bike Trail, which I was kind of appalled about. I more often go down Chester Creek and always am aware of every little bump and dip in Chester Creek. The deterioration on Campbell Creek Bike Trail is significant. There are a couple places where the creek's eroded underneath the trail. It needs emergency repairs. I hope somehow, some way, those can happen. I'm also in favor of the 15%. Put it in it, because it's being used. I mean, it's amazing the use.
Hi, my name's Alan Shayer. I'm here to request the maximum funding possible in the TIP. Rather than repeat some of the other comments, just a personal perspective. I've been bicycle commuting here since 1977 with some intermittent delays. I'm not bicycle riding because of driving kids, whatnot, when they're younger, but I've probably commuted well over 25,000 miles since I've lived here. And the signage and bike trails have certainly improved over the years. And like anyone who's commuted as much as I have any number of horror stories. However, whatever can be done to improve the safety, the signage and striping, to everybody's advantage. Campbell Creek Trail, I ride every single day. As some of you know, I work in this building. I took time off to be here. The trail is deteriorating. I ride 7 months a year here recreationally when I'm not commuting. During the winter, I do use a fat bike. The commuting, sports, fat bikes is growing dramatically. I was one of the first, now I'm just one of many. Whatever you can do to funding, especially for anything related to safety, striping, signage, I will certainly support. Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else? Hi, Barbara Rowland, that's R-O-W-L-A-N-D. I'd just like to speak for myself as well. As this gentleman, I've only been bicycling here 35 years. I've lived in several different areas around Anchorage and have commuted to work in several different locations, as well as just recreationally ride. I'd like to lend my support to the full maximum 15% funding for bicycle trails, signage, striping, and all those good things. One of my major concerns is the ongoing connectivity between the different trails and opportunities for bicyclists and pedestrians, because I'm so happy about the trail that now goes under the Seward Highway, but then once you get dumped into a neighborhood, where do you go? If you're not familiar, it can be a real hassle. So just keep plugging away, but get those things on the plans and get them funded right away. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Excuse me, I'm Todd Logan, and first and foremost, I want to repeat what Steve and several others have said, that I really want to thank everyone who's worked on this draft tip, because compared to where we were 2 years ago, it is an incredible improvement. And I think part of that is maybe a ever-increasing awareness of the importance of biking in this town. But also, we're in a different spot, I think, with the AMATS funding than we were 2 years ago. Even though the funding is down a little bit, we've got a couple major road projects like Dowling behind us. And don't get me wrong, Dowling's great. I drive it, and it has great bike infrastructure. But I think now is the time for us to really capitalize on increasing the funding for bike plan implementation under AMATS. And I think a worthy goal is to try to get the core bike network completely striped and signed in this 4-year TIP. That's why Bicycle Community of Anchorage have asked that this funding be bumped up 3.5% all 4 years. I think it's a golden opportunity. It's a great time to do it. I know AMATS funding is not supposed to be the only source of funding for bike plan implementation. We have worked, 2 years ago, we were able to get it added to the Muni's capital funding request in Juneau. We'd love to see it added into an area-wide transportation bond. Those are all things we're working on. But in all honesty, AMATS is kind of a special pot of money, and it's one that I think is very effective, and it's a great use of that funds to get this done. Implementing the bike plan, I think, is really important because it's great for residents, it's great for visitors, and it's great for business. We've recently, Bicycle Community of Anchorage, had meetings with the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation, and it was a no-brainer for them to get on board and agree that implementing the Anchorage bike plan is important if Anchorage wants to be competitive in the business community and keep skilled labor force and attract the kind of businesses we hope to bring to Anchorage, diversify the workforce. So that is kind of the pitch we're making. The request to increase, particularly 2017-18, up to 3.5%, it's not a nebulous request of more stuff. It's to do a follow-through on the $2.3 million that we have just spent on all the design work. I'm afraid if we don't increase the funding to actually implement that, some of those plans are never going to be done. And that's money wasted, and with the limited funding we have, I think it's really important to do that. So the one important question that I'm sure everyone thinks about is, well, if you're going to increase the funding in 17 and 18, where is it going to come from? This is a net sum game. I totally understand it. And I'll be so bold as to make a suggestion. I currently live on O'Malley Road, right by the zoo, literally a block from Birch Road. This group has heard me before lament the poor condition of the Birch Road multi-use path. And this group even agreed that a rehabilitation of path should be included with the Birch Road rehab. What we see, though, looking at the tip, is Birch Road is currently listed for $1 million each in 2017 and 2018. I can fully agree that Birch Road eventually needs to be fully rehabbed. What's happened, though, is Birch Road was totally repaved over the last 2 years. Is that the long-term permanent fix for Birch Road? The answer is no, it's not. But I'll tell you what, Birch Road is a nice piece of asphalt right now. And the idea 2 years from now to totally tear off that new asphalt and rehab that road, I think would be a waste of money. I think the idea of pushing the Birch Road rehab out several years, when at that point the frost heaves may have returned it into its rather poor condition and get us back to where we need to do a full rehab, I think that's fine. I think it needs to be done. But I think that's low-hanging fruit. I think take $1 million from Birch Road in 17 and 18, push that to bike plan implementation, specifically to work on the core bike network striping and signing. We'd have great progress. We'd be getting the plan done, and it would be the best use of the money in the tip. So with that, I want to thank you, but that's a specific suggestion on that.
And just to follow up on Birch Road, the way it's programmed in the tip right now is what is needed to actually have construction more like in 2020, 2021. And so it's going to take that long. This is just for preliminary design, not including right away. So by the time that we actually get to that construction, we might actually be returned to its former state. But thank you for the comments.
Any other public comments? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Sure, Jack Fields, 326 L Street, Apartment B. And I just wanted to weigh in support of the bicycle commuters of Anchorage. Public comments for enhanced bicycle and pedestrian investment. I bike to work every day, and some sections of the network are in good shape, and others need a lot of improvement. I appreciate everything BCA is doing to make it safer to get around town. There's in particular, a lack of on-road bicycle facilities, which are essential to making the connection between the trail network and people's homes and businesses, especially in places like Midtown where I work. So, you can commute safely on trail, but having those on-road connections is imperative so that people can recreate safely in Anchorage. And making those connections is really important to attaining the municipality's goal of becoming a higher-rated bicycle-friendly community. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So I think, my name is Robert Shipley. I would like to generally support the TIP proposal especially as supported in detail by the DCA comments that you have. We longtime cyclists here in Anchorage, and I have to say 40 years, have watched TIPs and bike plans being proposed and presented and developed over those years. And they're just sort of incrementally increasing, especially compared to other metropolitan areas in the world where they're marvelous bicycle infrastructure. But I am glad to see this one has made looks like more than just incremental increase in supporting bike infrastructure, and I'm pleased to see that. And I appreciate all your good work on it. I think these plans should be visionary, and especially in view of a lot of our grandchildren are going to be using them many, many years hence, and there'll be a lot more of these grandkids than the rest of us right here. And they'll be biking in the winter a lot, too, because it's taking off like such a phenomenon. So I support all these proposals and tips, and modify some suggestions to it, so I won't bother to repeat.
Thank you, Robert. Anybody else before we close public comment? Your last opportunity.
My name is Julie Sidoris, and I'm a cyclist in Anchorage and a driver. And being a cyclist has made me a better driver. And there needs to be striping and signage on the road. And as a driver, I'm requesting that this funding be increased, more so as a driver than a cyclist.
Thank you, Julie. Drum roll? Not once. All right, we're going to close public comments at this time and now rest with the committee. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Langley, you had mentioned that there were some design starts that would have to be postponed, or pavement replacement projects that would have to be postponed if we were to consider the DCA recommendation. Are you able to point any of those out to the committee?
Well, if you look at what the dollar figure be, we had $1 million. I think Mr. Logan was probably getting around the right dollar figure, $1 million or so each year to increase those dollar figures. So if you just look in table 3, well, I mentioned either transit fleet replacement, so that would be $1 million in table 5 and 17 and 18. Well, there's nothing in there at 17 for that, so there'd be $1 million of the 1.8 in 2018 for that. So there's option 1, and then in the table 3, the roadway category, if you're just looking in 17 and 18, you can see down the projects that are grandfathered. You have the $45 million for our rehab. You can take part of that, I guess, and then there's $1 million in storage. We have the Benson section and Rabbit Creek reconstruction or Birch Road. So, I mean, there are all sorts of options for which one you want to delay.
I wouldn't say that the table 5 is optional, and then we have a 10% target.
That's true.
On our
That's true.
procedures. And what is our target for the payment replacement? Is there a payment replacement requirement?
There is a payment replacement requirement.
It's 15.
It's 15. Yeah, 15,
20?
20.
Okay, it's just that, just to remind people that this is not an easy thing. There's policies and procedures that we got adopted here by the policy committee. We have targets we have to try to hit. Some of them will have ranges and some of them don't. And the CMAX 10%, which is where it's at.
Right.
We dropped like 0.1, which is $9 million.
That's
So,
what-
yeah, I wouldn't,
So
I wouldn't
payment-
necessarily look at table 5 as optional. And then we have to be
Case-
careful with the payment replacement because that is that.
Yeah, you're a good point. The payment replacement is 15 to 20, and we're at 16. and we're 10.3 at CMAX. So there's not a lot of success there.
Which of these would be design starts? Which of these projects?
The
The studies?
yeah, all the studies. So the project, well, actually, all of the Spinardo rehab is preliminary engineering, so that wouldn't be a possibility. The Spinardo rehab is PD, and the Rabbit Creek is virtually
And what, if I may, as well, what the table that we're looking at in the discussion right now is the one that is specifically for bicycle and pedestrian improvements. In addition to those, we have major capital projects that include pathways, like O'Malley Road is going to have pathways on both sides. Abbott Road as well, including some pathway extensions. And so this, when you look at overall as a network, how much is actually going into our improving either separated pathways or the roadways to accommodate, better accommodate bicycles. A lot of that is actually incorporated into the actual projects as well.
Other questions or comments?
I have a comment, Stephanie. You know, I really appreciate, and I ride my bike a lot. I really appreciate, I think, Brian's comments about wanting to increase it in the last 2 years. But I think a couple things that, back on what Cindy said, we are constrained on the target we're trying to reach, and I really think the staff's done a good job. And as you, the previous action of this committee was to amend the existing TIP, to make a minor modification to our ability to do it. And I really think if you guys look at 2015 and 16, the average of those 2 years is 15% of our allocation going to bike and ped. Those last 2 years, I mean, we've got a lot to do. There's a lot of projects on this thing that are going to wax and wane, including the projects that are on this list. So, I mean, I think the good news is AMATS is at 15% average for the first 2 years. I mean, we're really close on the first year, and it's all about our ability to deliver the projects that we have the money targeted for. And I think Lori, you know, she's really trying to help us make sure that we put money where we can deliver it. And if we put money in places that we can't deliver it, then it gets moved around. And that's you know, really not our goal. We don't want to put a place where we can't deliver it. And I think that at least for 15, most of 16, and 17 and 18, I think it's, as we do new TIPs, new transportation improvement programs, I mean, those numbers kind of get adjusted. And a 12.5% average over the 4 years, frankly, that's not bad either. You also have to recognize that our entire allocation for the last, since we've been upping it for enhancements, our entire amount of money for everything we do is going down. I mean, $23 million is not a lot of money. And so, I mean, I really think that this is a good tip, a good response to it. I wish we could do more. I mean, I can tell you in the bus business in 2018, I mean, I have to replace almost 20 buses. They're just $600,000 a piece. And I don't have that money in here, so I myself are in the same dilemma that you guys are in. So I really think for the first couple of years, we're in really good shape. And I think we need to present a tip to the community, to the assembly, planning and zoning, and the policy committee that we can deliver. And I mean, I'm looking at different ways we can do it. A lot of things are going to change, and as modifications come in, whether it be for a road project or a transit project or a trail project, I mean, we should be able to put the money there where we can. So, I mean, I think it's a good job. I think staff's done a good job trying to accommodate the requests. And I think if we were really short in 15 and 16, I'd be a little bit more concerned, but we're not. And we got a lot on our plate already. And I think as we get out to 16 or 17 and 18, we will be making some adjustments. So, and if we don't, you know, if we can't obligate 14 and 16% of it, I mean, our goal is to spend that much money, 10 to 15% within a 4-year period. I mean, that's the task we have before the policy committee. So I think we're on a good track with it here. So.
And I just want to say that, you know, I think it's important to note that biking is not just an auxiliary activity or recreational activity that really has grown to a transportation mode, and that is something that Anchorage has wanted for a very long time from the public health perspective, I will tell you. And I also agree with the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation's analysis of this being an important piece for for the health of Anchorage's business community. So I guess I would like to consider some of their recommendations, and they've offered some places to make changes within the budget category in Table 3. Can you consider those? I'm sorry, in the table where the bike plan is, can you consider those? Table 4.
Well, I guess just to clarify, the staff recommendations are to make some of the changes as far as within Table 4, the shift from the area-wide trails plan to the bike plan implementation. And,
Well, if you want to, what we could do as a committee is go through the staff recommendations, and then if there's other suggestions you have, you can take it for the.
Yes.
Of the staff committee recommendations?
Yes. So first item is the first recommendation, well, the first request was to increase the non-motorized allocation to a full 15% for the 4 years of the planning cycle. And at this time, the staff recommendation was to leave the current balance with the 14% in the first year, 16, and then 10 in the 2 outlying years.
What?
The recommendation, staff recommendation to keep the current level.
Second. So moved by Ms. Witt, seconded by Ms. Howell. Are there any opposed? Opposed? We go to the vote. Sorry, I'm gonna mark down as I actually vote. Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Yes, that you support the staff?
Yes.
Okay, just clarify.
I think that's how we.
I know, yes.
I think that's how we phrase her motion, so yes.
Yes, who's on first?
Yeah.
And now I'm flaking on your name.
DeSantis.
Eric.
DeSantis, Eric, I knew Eric. Mr. DeSantis?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wilbur?
Yes.
Ms. Witt? Yes. Ms. Stoneking is a no. I am a yes. So that's a total of 8 for, 1 against. That is moved. The next item before us, the second one was reducing the area-wide trails rehabilitation from 1.5 to 1 million in 2016 and reallocating funding for the bike plan implementation. Staff concurs with that change, so that has been reflected.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Weaver, seconded by Mr. Montague. Are there any opposed to that recommendation? Hearing none, we are so moved. Final item was delaying the planning, design, and construction of the Benson Boulevard multi-use path, which is project number 3, until the outlying years of 2019, 2020, and using those funds for the bike plan implementation. The staff recommendation was to leave this project as it has already been ranked and scored as one of the highest ranked projects in this category.
Move to approve staff's recommendations.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Witt, seconded by Mr. Wilbur. Are there any opposed?
I have a question real quick. First, was the Campbell Creek nominated as a project?
No.
Is that the section that the gentleman from Taggy County referred to?
The rehab? No, that was not. Was that
Yeah, this would not be a good category to try to use for that.
Okay, just checking.
There was a Campbell Creek,
It would take
the overpass on Lake Otis was nominated.
Right.
But not the rehab of it.
Just a neat process.
Yeah.
Not a good fit.
Not a good fit.
Okay, just, thanks for the clarification.
And we had a motion, we had a second. Are there any opposed to the staff recommendation? Ms. Duncan, will you vote? Sorry, Ms. Duncan, so No? Ms. Witt? Yes. Mr. Wilbur?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Lindenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mr. Katsakis?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. That also passes with an 8 or 1 yes.
And there was a public transportation one, did we cover that already?
We have not, and we also have to come to
Okay.
There's still 2 more items.
The next one, which is the last one actually written in here, in the safety category, I believe it would fall into HSIP, nominated by the Fairview Business Association, and we have that nomination before you. It'd be the Avenue project for the Gamble Street, call it the 4-lane to 3-lane conversion using a combination of FHWA safety funds and state grant funds. This is outside of the allocation, is not one of the 3 pots of money that we decide on. So staff recommendation is that this would be reflected in the tip at such time as DOT, who owns that facility, allocates HSIP or NHS funds and/or the state grant funds that they talked about for this project. So if that occurs, then we would add it.
Please let the record show that Ms. Howe supported it for 29. Thank you.
And just for clarification, this is the object, the topic, informational report, is that what you mean as well, correct?
Yeah, in some variation.
Are there other questions and comments? Questions and addressed from the committee at this time on?
That's correct. So, was the request to reflect the project in a table without content?
They've asked that it be shown in the tip, and they have a cost breakdown, which is in your packet as well.
I saw that.
And because it's FHWA safety funds or HSIP funds, it would be in table 2. The dollar figure is in the cost estimate. Okay? And it's a combination of state funds for the match, I believe, and then FHWA, HSIP money for the rest of it. So there is a dollar figure in there. It'll be going into HSIP program.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Lincoln.
Do we have to score this?
We only score the projects that are in our allocation.
Oh, it's
Right, yeah, we don't score anything that's in table 8. We don't score any of the NHS projects, they're not part of our allocation, so. All federal funding for, safety improvement, or surface transportation projects have to be in the tip. And so, this would be in there, but we don't rank and score it.
That's my recollection.
Whoever owns the facility says, hey, we're doing this, here's the money, put it in. We put it in there, it has to be reflected.
Yeah, the National Highway System projects, from DOT are coordinated and reflected in the tip as well.
You're saying the AMATS isn't the appropriate body to.
Well, what I'm saying is that this is something that, if it gets federal funding, it needs to be reflected in the tip. We don't rank and score this just like we don't rank and score the table 2 projects, we don't rank and score National Highway System project. We just reflect that when whoever owns the facility says, this is a project, we got money for it, reflect it. I mean, it's our tip, so we have to add it in, so we're on the correct body to add it in.
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Weaver.
would it be premature to do this until we actually see the analysis?
It's a challenging question because, when we get an earmark and it's in table 8, we just add it in. And some of those earmarks are nothing more than the piece of paper they're written on. You know how like safety, earmarks and we just add it.
When you have it worded, it requires, IP or the money, you would have to provide that, so I'm not at Bruce putting it in there.
The way the schedule works, we're going to the Planning and Building Commission on June 2nd. We will go to the Anchorage Assembly sometime, probably late June. And then this will come back before the policy committee for final approval sometime in July. So there is, time to add this in. We don't, it's not as much of a concern about what gets added in and when it gets added in if it's outside of our allocation, because we're not worried about ranking and scoring. We're just reflecting. And oftentimes, projects will come up that Lance has in table 7 or 8, and they've recognized funding, they've identified the funding, and we'll just add them in an admin mod or in our case.
I just think it may be premature till we actually have the analysis of that actually being.
Any other questions or comments on the committee before we go?
I just have one comment. I think, Craig, in our admin mod 10, one of the recommendations you had here is we listed, 5 new HSIP projects. And the reason we added them is because they were considered by those who evaluate HSIP projects, and they selected those. They put money towards them in order for them to advance. Then they added them into the TIP. These projects were not in the TIP for safety money prior to that. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Then we're open, is there any questions or comments from the public regarding this concept?
Hi, my name is Bob Kniefel. I'm with Hiddleston Associates, and we've been under work with the Fairview Business Association to help foster this project. I guess I have the same question too, is it's a chicken and egg situation where if it's not in the TIP, how do we get state funding? But how do we get state funding if it's not in the TIP? And I guess I would want a commitment from this group that if you do look at the analysis and do agree that we can go forward with it, that we're not going to have this problem of, well, it's not in the TIPs, we can't fund it type approach. I'm not sure how that's going to work, so maybe.
I'd offer a suggestion. I think, Bob, if it goes through the analysis and it makes it similar to these other HSIP projects, if that's the, you said, it says FHWA safety funds, I assume that's Highway Safety Improvement Program funds you're thinking about. The way those projects get, they get submitted to those who evaluate all projects for a Highway Safety Improvement Program. If they're selected, then, and we're notified that they were selected, then we add them into the TIP. Honestly, if they are selected, I don't think we can't add them into the TIP. In order for that process, those funds have been targeted, we include them in there so the project can advance. But we can't do it before then.
And this is also part of the issue with AMATS and that we have into the committee, and neither as a state or the municipality as you're aware have the opportunity yet to review the analysis. And I think it is, I would agree with Mr. Weaver that it's premature to even consider this at this point, since we're still working on whether or not it's consistent with the NTP. And I understand we're going to be hearing from you later on that. At this point, since no TIP monies, none of AMATS's allocation is allocated, identified or programmed for this project, that it's premature for it to show up in the TIP at all.
So the process we're in right now is we have a letter from the state that says if we complete these 5 items, then they'll support the project. So I guess at that point, once we have that approval, then we come back to you as a TIP request.
Going just for point of clarification for the committee here, the letter that you're referring to is the one from Ken Morton last fall, that basically if all of those steps were met, then DOT would review the project through our technical process internally and consider it. DOT has not reviewed the Gala Street redevelopment plan, and it has not reviewed the modeling information. And so it is that information that you're working to complete right now is what we had said, that once these elements are in place, then we internally at DOT within Central Region will review your project, similar to as we would a traffic impact analysis from a developer. And so there has not been an in-house technical review of this proposal as it affects the national highway system. And we were looking to this analysis to really address the regional impacts long-term of such a modification. And so I understand that that's going to be part of a later presentation, and at this point, we really need to move on.
Any other public comments at this time? Hearing none, matter lies before the committee. Review, second by Mr. Wood. Are there any opposed? Yes. Vote.
So maybe we should clarify what a yes and a no vote is.
Yeah.
Move for approval to incorporate it as requested.
Look.
Clarify my motion.
All right, the motion was to move for the approval. So if you're opposed, then you don't think it should be approved at this time.
We're specifically talking about the
Could you speak up a little bit? We can't hear in the back.
We are clarifying that the approval, when we said move to approve, we move to approve, including it within the TIP. If you're opposed, then it means you're not in favor of adding it to the TIP. And we're just clarifying that it's for the Gamble Street plan of going from 4 to 3 lanes, just clarifying the project. So, we're going to the vote.
Thank you,
Mr. Hanson?
No.
Mr. DeSantis?
No.
Mr. Reader? Mr. Lindemood? No. Mr. Wilbur?
No.
John George not here. Ms. Donkey? That is.
Chair, I apologize, but I'm going to have to leave.
You missed the vote, so we were all. Yes.
So the request was to move the money for the Midtown Transit Center, which is 5, from, it is project number 2, or study plan number 2, from 2016 to 2015. And I reflected that in the spreadsheet there. So staff's recommendation for that change.
And you said 300,000.
We balanced that with project number 1.
Okay.
We took it out of 15 and we put it in 16.
Thank you. Any questions on the meeting on this item? Are there any comments or questions on this from the public? Hearing none, and that lies with us.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Duncan, second by Mr. Wilbur. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, we are so moved. Does that complete all of business item 5B?
For public comments, we just need to, it's asked to recommend the policy committee approve it. Recommend that they present it to the planning board as the.
Okay, so now we need to move the everything.
I think it said so moved. Whatever you said.
Well, you moved. Is there a second?
As amended.
Now we're moving for the whole thing. So we have a motion by Mr. Menston. Second. Second by Ms. White. Are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, we are moved.
For those who came to testify, if they're still here, I appreciate you guys coming. Greg, thanks for you and DOT staff for pulling this stuff together. Roy, thanks for your time on this too. Appreciate it. But we're not done. We're just getting started.
So, since we're past the business items at the moment, I am going to excuse myself for just a moment as I've gotten multiple messages from my boss, and I will hopefully be back shortly. I apologize.
Is this one? Statewide. Can we be up first?
I think so.
not sure what this is about.
And I pulled out
Yeah, as I mentioned before, this is Eric Taylor with our statewide program development division in Juneau, and he's actually here to start some public meetings on our statewide long-range transportation plan. And so this information is really instrumental in understanding in some of the trends, and as it will affect also and kind of funnel down into our own more local plans.
Thank you, Jennifer. As Jennifer said, I'm Eric Taylor. I'm with Division of Program Development in Juneau. I'm the project manager for the statewide long-range plan update. This is a project we do about every 5 years. The last one was published in 2008 and had a target year of 2030. So this time we're looking at target year 2035. So what I'll cover today is just an introduction to the plan. I'll talk about some trends and conditions that we've seen so far, looking out ahead, and then I'll talk about how the public can get involved. Incidentally, I gave this brief yesterday to the AMATS Technical Committee. Part of our due diligence as part of the statewide planning update effort is the coordination and cooperation aspect with the NPOs. And so it's always a better product when all our planning is transparent and we're all in the loop. So that's one of the reasons I'm here. Right after I get done with this presentation, I've got to hop in the car and drive up to Wasilla because we have an open house up there tonight. But next week will be on the 13th, which is Wednesday, I believe. Tuesday. Sorry, Tuesday? Okay, thank you. I've been traveling a lot this week. We'll be back in Anchorage to do a public open house at the LUSAC Library. So what is the long-range transportation plan? It addresses the state's role in transportation statewide. So we kind of look at the whole overall picture, not just roads, not just aviation, we kind of look at everything. This particular time around, we're trying to implement the requirements that have been placed on the state as a result of MAP 21. When we talk about policy in the plan, this is a policy level plan. It's kind of like, I guess you could call it an umbrella plan. So it's sort of the top layer. Beneath that, you have various other plans that are more project or infrastructure specific, that like the area transportation plans, like the modal plans. We're actually doing a rail plan concurrent with this one. Strategic highway safety plan is another one of those. But this particular plan sort of it has the policies and the guiding direction that filters down into all of the other planning efforts that we do. And so that talks about that strategies and actions that link the whole planning framework together. We want to align with the policy direction for the state. So we're not actually, as DOT, trying to set policy for the state. We're trying to get our transportation policy in line with where the state is headed. It's a multimodal plan, so we're looking at all modes, even the ones that we don't get a federal funding stream for. And it's our official state plan. When we go to federal highways and federal transit and say our STIP is in accord with our statewide long-range plan, this is the document we hang our hat on. So what's covered in it? Obviously, future direction of the state out to 2035 this particular time around. We are going to look at a capital project development list out to 10 years. That's more like medium range as opposed to short range. But one of the reasons we're looking at that this time around is because of the fiscal concerns we have as a state. In that upcoming 10-year period, we're not looking at a growing funding stream either on the federal side or the state side. So one of the things that we think it's important to do as a department is to give the public an expectation of what we actually can do with the funding streams that we have. Beyond that, we'll look at long-term needs and trends. We'll revisit the policies that were in the 2008 plan, tweak some of those if deemed necessary. And we'll also look, again, looking out to 2035 if we see particular needs that need to be addressed by the state out into the future that cause some kind of a strategy to go address those needs or those concerns. We can include those in the long-range plan as well. And finally, we don't just look at the funding such as it is, but we try to look at opportunities to tap into other possible sources of funding that can meet our transportation needs. We want to align with the governor's priorities, put those down there. They're kind of apple pie, but they're the same sort of priorities that the federal transportation. What am I looking for? At US DOT, they're the same sort of things that are coming our way from them. Maintain what we have, focus on our priorities, live within our means, finish what we've started. That one's fairly important because in the transportation world, as you know, it takes a long time to get a project from concept to construction. And during that time frame leading up to construction, we incur several, we're actually billing the federal government that whole time. So we've got a lot of federal money invested in that whole process leading up to construction. One of the things MAP 21 put our way was the idea of performance measures. Not that that's the first that we've heard of them, but this is the goals that have been given to us in MAP 21. 7 national performance goals. And what we're seeing now is the rollout in the regulatory framework in terms of Federal Register notices of what particular measures are going to be coming to the states. There's a safety notice on the street right now. I think 4 measures identified here. And a lot of this is working through AASHTO and their Standing Committee on Performance Measures. So all of the states have been involved in this process, going back and forth with USDOT. I think they're looking at a total of 13 measures altogether. And there's a lot more that have been discussed. It's hard to get agreement with that diverse a group. And I think one of the important considerations in all that is that they didn't want to actually add data or a data burden over and above what's already being collected. The performance mandate affects the national highway system routes. It doesn't spread beyond that. That's really what they're targeting. And MAP 21 is a 2-year bill. The funny thing is it takes about 2 years for all the regulations to roll out after a bill is passed. So those things are hitting the street right now, and yet MAP 21 expires in September. The latest intel is that whatever successor legislation comes out there, and the president or the Obama administration put their proposal out on the street last week, the Grow America Act. So that's out there you can look at, and of course Congress will be weighing in, probably submitting their own proposal as yet. So that, stay tuned. That'll all be happening this summer while you're on vacation. Trends and conditions. So I got a number of slides to expand upon these, but this is kind of what we're looking at right now in terms of broad areas. One is population, another one is travel demand, and the third is funding. So you see there, population-wise, Alaska is experiencing an increasing senior population. So is every other state. But in Alaska, it's particularly, I think we have the fastest growing senior population in the country. There is the continued need for improved connectivity statewide. So we want to try and, we're still that young state with the incomplete transportation network. So we want to try and make connections where we can and lower our operating costs if we can. We also see a need for additional capacity in urban areas and in suburban areas, if you want to call them that as well. Our fastest growing area in the state is Matsu, with Anchorage a close second. And combined, Department of Labor is telling us between 2010 and 2035, you'll have 40% higher population in those two areas, combined in those two areas over what you have now. Travel demand, since about 2008, we've had no VMT growth. Vehicle miles traveled has been flat nationwide. Number of reasons for that. Initially, it was the price of gasoline spiked, so people didn't want to buy as much gas. But some other trends have come into play, telecommuting. What we heard earlier today, people are biking a lot more than they used to instead of driving. And then on the funding picture, we still have this huge reliability on federal funds, but we're not seeing the growing federal transportation pot that we saw in the 90s and the aughts or the 2000s. That's leveled off. It's even shrinking. And our secondary source is a state general fund. And you all know that's not doing particularly well right now either, because that depends on oil flow through the pipeline, which is down, and the oil price being up, and that's gone down as well. So this gives you a sense of the population distribution. This is based on 2010 census. No surprise, the biggest population concentrations in the Anchorage area, with the Matsu, Kenai Peninsula, all kind of grouped there. And the second largest concentration up in Fairbanks. On the senior side, this is, get my laser pointer here. Okay. This is interesting, because over here on this is 2010 on the left and 2035 on the right. And this big bulge here you see between ages about 49 up to the 40 to 60 range, that's your boomer generation. And in 25 years from then, or from now, they're up here in the 70-plus range. Not as many of them there as reflects some of them are moving out of the state, but some are staying. And the big difference there is when you look at that 70 to 77 age group now, it's a fairly thin spread. But look at that age group 25 years from now. And it's significant increase. And that translates into a whole different way of, structuring your transportation system to deal with that age group. I heard from Fairbanks you need wider roads. I chuckled at that a little bit. But on the other hand, some of the things like visual acuity at your more senior years means you like signs that have bigger letters. You like more lighting because your sensitivity to light is not as good as it is when you're younger. So a lot of things to keep into consideration. And the one, of course, I've managed the transit program at DOT. We look at that as being a driver of the need for public transportation service as well. This gives you a sense of where in the state the fastest growth occurred, and I already talked about AMATS in Anchorage. No surprise. That's the big. That's the one with the highest slope. This comes from labor and workforce development. Of course, the reality is population doesn't go in a nice straight line like that. It'll probably be a little wavier. But they love linear regression. So here's the travel demand. I think the next time I do this presentation, I'll try and do some projections out into the future so you're not getting a cutoff at 2009. But you see in the little green dotted line the DMT leveling off. And it stayed level ever since. Oddly, the state motor vehicle registrations continue to climb. So, we love our cars, we just don't drive them as much. On the funding side, this just gives you a sense of proportion. The blue is all federal transportation funds. The green is state general fund. And of course, in order for the state general fund, we need a healthy oil flow or some sort of healthy resource flow to generate revenue into the state treasury. When we look at state general fund, the pattern is not smooth, tends to go in spikes. And the spikes you see there in 2008 and 2012 were years when the oil price was high and the legislature was in more of a spending. Current year, it's down. Probably the lowest general fund outlay toward transportation from the legislature we've seen in quite a while. The projection, for the next 10 years is not good. It's actually a reduction in general funds. So that's the near-term prognosis. Unless something changes in terms of fuel prices or resource development, we're looking at a shrinking general fund picture. And on the federal side, I don't know if you've seen this one before. This is the famous Highway Trust Fund. This actually comes from Congressional Budget Office. But this is where we are right now. Highway Trust Fund goes down to a zero balance, I think projected to go zero in August of this year. So unless Congress acts to transfer some funding from the general fund into the Highway Trust Fund, we're looking at federal highways and federal transit having to slow down the flow of funds to the states. This whole, this is all hypothetical, but in fact, you can't go into a negative balance in the Highway Trust Fund. So that just shows this problem's going to be with you for a while. And the reason for this is because ever since Safety Lou, the outlay from the Highway Trust Fund in terms of what Congress has authorized has been higher than what's coming in through the highway gas tax. In addition, we're doing a freight analysis as part of the long range. So that's we're kind of over in the green dots now. Once all the data is collected and sifted through, and in the second part of the plan, we'll be looking at specific areas to address concerns of the freight picture. But really looking at a flow of goods into and through the state, where they come in and where the bottlenecks are. And in this analysis, we're also coordinating with both of the MPOs who are also engaged in freight studies, particular to your metropolitan areas. Just what we're seeing statewide on the inbound. In the blue, you're seeing things moving by air. And on the left-hand side over here, it's the value of the product. So your high-value products, machinery, electronics, precision instruments, are moving primarily by air, coming into the state. I'm not sure if all of these are coming into the state and being used by the state, because we have this phenomenon in Anchorage International Airport of being the international cargo hub. So a lot of this stuff can be coming into the state and then going right around and going out of the state. But over here on the right-hand side, this is by weight, so short tons. And your big product here is, it says coal. I think it's also refined petroleum as well. So this reflects fuel coming into the state from outside. A lot of barge traffic coming up from Tacoma. On the outbound side, there's that miscellaneous manufacturing goods and pharmaceuticals, precision instruments, all moving by air. That's why I suspect this stuff is not staying here, it's flowing through. But on the right, again by weight, primary weight mode is water. So there's your petroleum going out through Valdez. And I got coal over here as well. On the public involvement side, several different modes of outreach. Of course, this week we're doing the public open houses. But we've put together a transportation stakeholders group and a freight advisory committee to help us with the overall plan and the freight element. And these are, I guess you'd call perspectival groups. We try to get transportation users with a broad perspective of interest. So it's sort of representative in that way, but it's not political at all. We're just trying to get people that use the transportation system in different ways to talk to each other and to talk to us. And you get a lot of good chemistry in the room when that goes on. We've already had meetings back in March. Both of those groups will be meeting again with them in Anchorage at the end of this month. After the next meeting, when we start actually looking at goals and objectives of the plan, we'll do another open house, but it won't be public meetings and where we send the whole team out. We're going to be doing an online open house. And this meets a need, I think, not only in the urban areas of the state, but as well as for many rural areas. We're trying to address the need where people have a lot of things on their plate and they can't actually take the time to physically be at a public meeting and come in and provide comments. So we want to put that open house online. We call it a virtual open house. But there will be video. We'll do the same things we normally do at any other open house meeting. Provide the information that people can look at over a period of time, and then send us comments. We'll also be putting out newsletters. Of course, we have the website up and running now. And one of the things we're also doing this time is trying to channel the questions somewhat by asking people what we want to hear from them. And in this umbrella 30,000-foot policy plan, it's awful tough for people to sort of get their arms around that idea of it's big picture. You know, a lot of times they're more interested in what you're doing to their street or what you're doing when you're going to get to that highway improvement that's needed in their community. So this is a way of after you get that information that you see in the open house, trying to channel those comments to ones that are that we can use in the planning development. So where are we on the timeline? Of course, we're into May with the public open houses. There's an error here with the stakeholder group and the Freight Advisory Committee. That's actually going to be moving up in the late May frame. The online open house, we're looking at our August time frame, with the draft plan coming out September. We'll have a long comment period on there, and we're projecting final plan coming out November, December. If you want to find out what we're doing or get notifications as new information comes out on the website, we recommend using gov.delivery. You can go right to the department's homepage and sign up for that. It doesn't cost you anything except a little bit of your time. And you can not only sign up for the statewide long-range plan update, but any of the area plans and anything else that DOTs do. And then final, come back here. Final is our website. It's just dot.alaska.gov LRTP plan update. That's the alias, but yeah, write that one down and you can go straight to our website. But if you can't remember that, you can also go to the DOT homepage and there's a link to take you right there. Any questions for me?
The public meeting, did you mention that already, at LUSAC?
Yeah, I mentioned public meeting at LUSAC Library next week. That's going to be 4:30 to 8, I believe, and we'll do a presentation much like this one at 5:30.
So when are the comments due to you for this time period?
Comments can be made at any time, so we're not really looking at due dates. I think once the draft comes out, then of course we're time limited. We'll put out a public notice, and you probably 45 days to comment type thing.
Craig, an idea I had when I put those 4 questions out. You should get the technical committee together and we should answer those 4 questions. I mean, you have all modes represented here, and then have a work session and we can kind of brainstorm and answer those questions, what we think as AMATS Technical Committee, and then either share them with the policy committee or just share them straight to the DOT, because as one of the largest urban areas, I think it's really important because we are dependent on all of those things, and the connection of your statewide plan to our MPO plan. Those are similar questions we're asking for our own update.
Right.
So.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I left a few copies of frequently asked questions and a project fact sheet up here. But they'll probably run out before you get to them.
Are they online?
They are online on our website.
Next item has a presentation as well. Oh, they all do?
Who's next?
Now,
Bob is.
okay, the question I have for you, we are now at 4:15. Do we have to move to extend? We only have,
I was going to make a suggestion for you, maybe since it sounds like there's still quite a few questions in that, maybe we could have a separate work session the next 2 weeks, rather than trying to, you haven't had a chance to read the stuff yet, I guess. So let you do that, and then let's set up a work session in 2 weeks where we can just, on that one topic maybe.
on the Gamble Street?
Yeah, would that be
Okay, so just
acceptable?
so it's pretty quick presentation.
I got about 15 slides, so I was thinking not do anything today.
Oh.
Just let you go back and read the information you got, and then I will have a work session in 2 weeks to kind of go through it, and because it's going to take more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Do we need,
Would that help?
we need to make a motion to do that, just to change the agenda?
Well, it's just an info item, so you could bring it up whenever you want, but
That's true.
we can, I mean, the work session is not recording all that sort of stuff, so I can set it up.
Well, I do have a question. I understand this is going before the Planning and Zoning Commission on Monday evening, and so how would that process tie in with what AMATS is doing?
Well, the item that is going before the Planning and Zoning Commission is the Fairview Neighborhood Plan. This is included in that to some degree, but that's what's going before the commission, the entire plan, not just this portion.
Okay, what was Transportation Planning's comments on the Fairview neighborhood plan?
We didn't have comments on that. At the time, we did not have staff available to, we just got full staff. So,
What does it say in the Fairview plan about this, John, about this project?
It includes this project in the plan.
Yeah.
As a three-lane section?
Yes.
It's
What was the planning department's recommendation
Well,
on the plan with a three-lane section? I haven't read the report, so I don't know. Christine, what does it say?
We didn't make a specific recommendation on the Gamble Street redevelopment project, because while the Fairview neighborhood plan makes mention of it, and they included it as an appendix, they haven't asked us specifically to make a recommendation on it.
Lance, what I can tell you about the Fairview plan is that there are several references in the plan to the three-laning of Gamble. It's mentioned all throughout the documents. I mean,
It's up to the DNC what they do. I mean, I'm just kind of curious as to what you guys said. Obviously, you didn't comment on it. It's too late for us to put comments in it.
And we did receive a letter from DOT, which is included in the comment table.
right, and that's one of the things that I was talking about, but DOT will be, the response to that letter was directed back to the very analysis that Bob was going to be talking about that we haven't reviewed, and it reads as if one could be led to believe that the DOT is reviewed and accepts it, and that's not the case at all. And so I think there might be some miscommunication or misunderstanding on it. And that's, I had called the, I too was wondering what does the recommendation for approval and moving it forward, since the Gamble Street study is such an integral part of the Fairview plan. And so, I guess that's a question we'll.
Yeah, this is kind of an unusual situation for us because our department didn't write the plan, the neighborhood did. And then they brought it forward to us and asked us to take it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we said that we would do that, and so that's why we opened that public comment period so DOT and everybody else could make comments on what they thought was, appropriate or whatever in there. And it is a public hearing, so everybody will have a chance to say something at the meeting.
Okay, and actually, just for the benefit of Bob and others here, I think our primary concern about the document that we received is that it reads as if DOT has reviewed and approved or supports this project, and yet DOT has not reviewed this plan internally until certain conditions were met. And so DOT has not done a technical review of any part of the Gale Street development plan. And then AMATS had also asked for information on the modeling. So that's, I understand what you're going to be talking about today.
So, two things. We are now 10 minutes away from the end of the meeting, so we probably need to move to extend even for the items we have left. And also, do we want to have a work session on this particular subject in several weeks, since we can't cover it all right now?
I would like to have a work session. I think Bob's got a good idea.
Yeah.
And the only thing on 2 weeks is the policy committee, and it's at 1:30, so as long as we can schedule around that, find a time. A work session, whether it's in 2 weeks or 10 days, I don't care. I think Bob's got a good point. I don't want him to rush.
Well, it seems that it's just very awkward to have this moving forward through a P&Z and a public process when AMATS is not even reflected in it, or and transportation planning hasn't even weighed in on it. It's just a little awkward. It's unusual, and because of its funding and coming from outside of both DOT and the municipality, it's an unusual kind of fumbling.
We're still talking about it.
I know.
No.
So, since we don't have to change the agenda, then we'll say yes, work session, please. The question is, now that we have 10 minutes left, do we think that we can cover the
Lori,
rest of
can
the
you-
items?
Lori can be very fast.
Okay. I'm gonna try to be very fast.
I left it on the top table up there.
Right there.
I'm gonna stand back here because I gotta look at the other thing. Alrighty then. I thought what I would do is give you a little talk about everything that I've been working on for the past few years. So, settle back. When I do give talks, I do like to tell people, especially from out of town, a lot of our kids and we're all going to work in the dark. So I just think these statistics are pretty good. Those are the only statistics I have in this presentation. We have a lot of snow challenges in Anchorage. There's a lot more people out bicycling. There's people in wheelchairs. There's people trying to take the bus. That person in the middle shot is sitting on a bench at the bus stop. So. And of course, we've got places like Golden View Drive where there's nowhere to walk, and that's right outside of a school. We've also got wildlife challenges. This one here is right outside, and I always thought it was funny that it's right near the moose sign. This is downtown Anchorage, of course, and on our trails. We really got started with things in 2006 with the pedestrian plan, the bicycle plan. The area-wide trails plan is coming. We got a little turned around with staffing last year, but Joni Wilm is the new planner that is going to be working on this with us. So we'll be getting rolling on that shortly. There's also a lot of things that came up in the pedestrian plan, especially that we can now look at when we, like I review plats all the time. Things like rolled curbs, subdivisions with no sidewalks, missing links. There is a sidewalk there, this is 88, but it doesn't go anywhere. We've got many users that maybe need to be reprogrammed a bit. And of course, we've got a lot of people that, this is outside Barnes and Noble, is that really a sidewalk? You know, and once you get the trucks with their big bumpers, it makes things non-existent. We've also had a lot of nice site design changes. This is Walmart, of course, where you have the sea of asphalt, and I know that many of you have helped work on things that are different, so that we've got walkways from the street, and even some developers just going in and putting some things in on their own. And Target, when the Target came in, we asked them for a pedestrian plan as part of their plating submittal, and they went ahead and did it. So things are moving and improving. And we also want to get kids safely to school. One of the ideal situations is when we can put a pathway in with room for snow storage. It really helps street maintenance as well as gives a good place to walk. And many of our platted projects feature walkways to school, so that's really nice. Engineering has been great. DOT has responded very well. This is downtown and this is at A Street and Benson, where they've gone, or wait, maybe it's Northern Lights, Benson, where they've gone and looked at how we shouldn't have right turn on red or taking out a whole row of parking. So people are there and responding, and all of the right turn on red results in 33% of bike vehicle crashes. So that's one of the major issues that bicyclists face today. With our PED plan projects, we had a whole bunch of projects listed, over 300, and we ranked them all, which was really cool, by things like, is it in a school zone, and what type of project is it? Here you can see we've started plinking off the projects, and that's been really exciting. Blueberry Drive was an actual putting in a sidewalk, which was in a school area. There's Stellar School is right down the street, and we also incorporated a rain garden. There aren't many LID projects in Anchorage, but we're trying to put things in as we can. This other one is in Mountain View. This is McCary Street and Mountain View Drive, and we did put a pathway in, and hopefully this will fit in with the roundabout that's going on. And you can see here are at the bottom the numbers that were in the pedestrian plan. So we're slowly getting to them. Some of the road projects too are including pedestrian amenities. Spinard Road was number 7 in the PED plan, and there's a new project that will be starting up on 120th Avenue. It's in the bicycle plan as well as number 128 in the pedestrian plan, and this is right at the school. And there's a lot of housing right here, and there's nowhere for the kids to walk. So it's all good. We've got a couple projects that are going in this year. On the left is Checkmate Drive. It goes to College Village Elementary School, and as you can see, it's kind of a non-controlled group of kids getting to and from school. This here is they're all walking on a snow berm, which really isn't that safe either. And on the right, we have a project over at Muldoon Elementary School, which just got bid yesterday. So we'll be putting in some islands, and we work very closely with Traffic Division to make sure that what we're doing is okay. Cordova Street is another project that will be going to bid soon. And Cordova, around 15th, if you're not aware, this is the very notorious two-way bicycle lane. And so we'll be going ahead and putting bike lanes on both sides of the street. And north of 9th Avenue, because we have parking here, there'll be sharrows similar to this situation, which will be, I believe, our first one in town. And basically, these markings just show that you can share the road. So we'll have to get some public information going too, so people understand.
Shared use lane markings.
Shared use lane markings.
Oh,
we're not? Okay.
No.
All right, I stand corrected. Another project that we bid last year and will be starting very shortly is West Northern Lights Boulevard, and you asked me, how can we do this? This is a state road. We got a state legislative grant, so we can use state money on state roads. And here's a little sort of kind of what it may look like, just using Photoshop. And yeah, this area here with the trees is just the other side of this spot. This is right by the creek. And so this pathway here has been something that people have wanted for years. And it was in the pedestrian plan and the bicycle plan. Arctic Boulevard as well is one that DOT is working on, and one that was nominated and will be going into construction this year. And it's primarily a striping project. This part of Arctic here, we're looking north, just north of Fireweed, and it will have bike lanes. But on the right, when we're near the park, this is Valley of the Moon Park, there's so much parking and everything there that in a meeting with parks and with traffic, we've decided that we'll be putting shared use lane markings, not sharrows, that's a typo. So that will be coming along later this year.
And we did that all the way, it's through both the 90-degree curves on each end. I mean, part of it was a consideration that when the bikers are going down those hills, they also wouldn't be able to stay in the bike lanes because those are rather sharp corners. So once you get about partway down the hill, it encourages you to take the lane, and on the park, so you take the lane to go through those 90-degree curves by the park and then through the other 90-degree curve.
Stephanie?
Yes.
I move we move this, we extend this for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Since it's 4:30 now.
That's true. We motion to extend 10 minutes?
Second.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Go ahead.
Very quickly. We also have a couple of bicycle boulevards. On the left is 10th Avenue. We've just opened for legislative funding for 2014, and we will put out an RFP. And we're also working on 27th Avenue. And a bicycle boulevard basically is markings on the street that alerts vehicles that there will be a lot of bike traffic there, and provides an alternate route for bikes rather than being on the main streets. Some of the other things we've done is we have done LCI training, League of Certified Instructors. I'm back there. And so, and you know, we've had a couple other LCI classes. This was mostly Anchorage Police Department officers, except for this one guy. There's always one in a crowd that has to lift the bike up. But from that, we've been able to teach Traffic Skills 101. You may recognize Ann Schlapia from the Health Department. She is an LCI as well. And this is Christy Wood from BCA, and she's an LCI as well. So we've done quite a few classes and taught some traffic skills. We also went last year to Lakewood Elementary and taught a class, some bike skills, took them on a bike tour, and probably the best thing we did was we had Alaska Injury Prevention Center come with us, and we fitted everybody in a helmet. So we got rid of some of those cracked snowmobile helmets that people were wearing. Every year we count bikes for Bike to Work Day, and this year we did push it off till June 4th, hoping for better weather, and we hope to see our counts go right through the roof. We have also worked on the bike map every year, and we're about to publish our 4th printing, and the layout, CRW Engineering donates, and this year we have Visit Anchorage helping with some of the costs on that. And we're also working on a Safe Routes to School plan, which we got a grant for from the state, and that'll go and look at different safety things that we can do with different schools. So we're just collecting data for now.
Can I just add to that? We're also trying to work on the update of our school zone policy manual that has to do with how we're marking, signing, striking, and allocating, you know, the school zones, and working with the idea that any place where we don't have proper signage marking for the safe routes to schools and the plans that we have with that, with the school zone policy manual, that can help us identify those as well.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, we'll be meeting with the Hazardous Roads Committee. And we also last year obtained silver status as a city with the bicycle-friendly community with the League of American Bicycles. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Lori? Hopefully there should be a lot on the ground from what we're seeing from class. We told you we've been working. I will never forget it again. Okay. Meeting is not adjourned. I'm sorry.
Through your folks' efforts, approval of our UPWP last year, we were able to add our associate planner position back in. And so we're very happy to welcome Joni Williams as our new associate planner. She's been working on, she's been staffed by the Health Committee. She's been working on a public involvement plan update, which we probably will see next month, hopefully. I'm very excited for that to come out. And she'll be working with Lori on the Area Trails plan update, so we'll get that moving along. Yeah, she's been helping us for the last year and a half or so on different the bike stuff issues, so as much time as we can get to it.
All right, any other announcements at this point?
Weight restrictions are going up. Fixed? No. Right away, community right away is open on Wednesday, and we are expect to start seeing a lot of work out there starting next Wednesday. Be safe. Big trucks, heavy equipment.
I guess, and on a personal comment, I've been very saddened lately by all of the motorcycle and pedestrian deaths that have happened. When we have such beautiful weather, there is no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse for this. And it amazes me that there's not more outrage at the number of deaths on a yearly basis on the roadway system. Everybody gets upset when somebody gets shot or when something else happens. But when you look at the number of deaths in the roadway system compared to the other, methods and means, it's amazing how many people are getting killed out there. So be safe. Tell other people to be safe. Let's keep each other safe and slow down. It's a car, not a time machine. You do not need to try to fly. Amen. So, any other comments at this time? Yeah. All right, so the next scheduled AMATS meeting is the policy committee meeting, which is 2 weeks from today down at City Hall, and we will be back here on June 12th next month. We are adjourned.